she is trying to make it to this one too.
Okay, thank you. And what about Tiffany, Wendy?
I don't think so. She's on spring break.
Gotcha. Okay, so it'll be a small little community today. Awesome.
Yeah. Nice to see
So
you again, Heather.
Hey, hello.
It's on my to-do list to contact you and follow up on our fall conversations.
Wonderful. You do that.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Is this our group today?
yes, I think this is gonna be it. Let me go ahead and turn off the music.
As lovely as it is.
All right, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So just to do a quick check-in, go ahead, and I don't think we need to introduce ourselves on the chat. We can kind of just see each other. Nice. Thank you everyone for making it today. I know a lot of us are on spring break and, are very busy trying to finish off March. So I'm really happy to see you all. But if you can drop the number of the blob that you are feeling like at this moment in the chat, and then share with us why. Or we can come off mute if you want to share out loud. That is also awesome. Long is at 4 if he is sleeping. All right, where's 4 at? Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what each of them represents.
I am feeling like I am at, I want to say 3 because I'm hanging in there. Or maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah, 3. Like I'm trying to hold on to everything that's going on right now in March. And I see Heather put in a 9. Where's 9 at?
9's on that platform. Like, I climbed up to the platform and I'm supposed to get to the top, but I need to rest at this platform. That's what I was feeling with this guy.
Gotcha. And what about you, Wendy? Where are you at right now?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what they're supposed to represent, but I think 8 saying like it's a bit precarious, but I've got my feet under me, but could fall at any moment.
Gotcha. And then Christina, who is going to be supporting me with links and all that good stuff, she said she's at 5, barely hanging in there. Yes. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And so hopefully, so when are your spring breaks? Wendy and Long, you guys are out next week?
This is spring break, but I don't get spring break.
Oh, gotcha. And
in 10 minutes, my spring break officially starts. 10
awesome.
minutes.
Yay. What about you, Heather?
My spring break technically is next week. I'm probably going to be working through it, but I'm going to be sleeping as long as I can.
Gotcha. Yes. All right. Very cool. So here's the QR code for today's deck. I think I shared it last time, but I just have it here just in case for those of us that don't have it open or lost the link. Christina will also be dropping the link in the chat. I see that she already has. So thank you, Christina. So yeah, welcome back to day 2 of our learning around equitable high school mathematics pathways. I am very excited to continue our learning today. And so here are our learning goals and our success criteria. I'll give you a minute to just reacquaint yourself with them. And Wendy and Long, if you can just share something that that you were able to get from our learning last week. I know it's been it's been some time, but if from the learning goals or the success criteria, what is something that resonated with you from last week?
For me, it was a little more information about the idea of consolidating Algebra 2 and pre-calculus, which is something I've been thinking about, what that would look like.
Awesome.
So we were all very interested in those alternative pathways last week. So still very much interested in seeing what's in store.
Thank you. Thank you, Long. Thank you, Wendy. And welcome, Lena. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna have Christina drop the link to the deck that we're going to be using in the chat. I don't know if you're familiar with everyone, but thank you for being here with us today. All right. And so just a quick recap of what we did on our first day of our workshop here. So we looked at some data, we looked at some global data, then we looked at some state data, and then we were able to notice some persistent trends around mathematics learning, specifically for our high school students. And we also dove into some learning around mathematics as a launchpad, with the 3 focuses of supporting a growth mindset in mathematics and our math capacity, supporting our varied learning needs, and approaching math in a multidimensional way. And we also did a little bit of a discussion around how we support our middle school students with having a strong foundation for high school. And we talked about the 3 options that the framework offers. And then we also did some learning around the 2 high school mathematics pathways that are in the framework. And we looked a little bit at our big ideas for each specific course and what implications that might have for our offerings. So today our goal is going to be, I'm really excited to have Heather here. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your journey and your experience with our small community here, because I think it's so important. The work that you did is so important. And I think that we are going to be getting so much from your experience and your learning. And then we're going to be looking at 3rd and 4th year options. And then having some time to reflect on our own offerings, and then having some discussion and collaboration around how we might be able to support our students more equitably. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Heather. So Heather, let me go ahead and make you co-host so that I can.
Thank you. Yep.
So you can share.
Wonderful. And I can just share my deck from this particular piece, right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, everybody.
Let me stop sharing screen as well.
Okay, fantastic. So I am just moving into this one here is what I wanted to kind of have. I might just zip through it. And Jessica, just bear with me. I have about 15 minutes. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I can do it. I can do it. All right, good. Okay, so I guess what we wanted to do is just kind of share a part of the journey that we are currently on. So I am not speaking from the perspective of a district who has landed on perfection. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process that we took in starting to change the mindsets of what a static pathway getting away from a static pathway into possibly a more 21st century pathway. I'm not crazy about the 21st century phrase, because we're like a quarter of the way into the 21st century. That's not as innovative as it used to be, but you get my idea, right? Okay, so our math pathways tend to be very static, very locked into place, and very rigid, right? How many more ways can I say the same thing? And so what San Gabriel Unified started to do is really examining the pain points, in particular for our marginalized communities, and at what point things were not looking good for some of our kiddos, and how we could address those things. So we put together a committee. It was made up of our middle school teachers, our high school teachers, a couple of principals, a couple of people from the district, just to start examining what else was out there. and to develop pathways that could be offered to all students starting in this school year. We reviewed the why. We really did have to do a little bit of work to kind of ground our staff into why we were looking at things differently. The data of scores only got us so far, and so we really had to lean a bit on some of this mandate pieces, the history of some of these mandates that really weren't necessarily being examined as a means to create a more equitable path through mathematics. So we looked at the new math framework. We looked at what relevancy could be. We looked at our own board policy. We looked at SB 359, which required that annual examination of pupil placement data. And I'll get to that in a second. That proved really, really key for us in moving our, pushing our needle a bit. And we looked, of course, at Ed Code 51224.7. Again, we're looking at that data. We are in the process of becoming a very data-driven organization with our adoption of MTSS. I'm the director of MTSS and innovation here in San Gabriel Unified. So I deal a lot with both equity and thinking about ways to create a district and organization that has the fluidity that we need for our kids' futures, not our futures, but the kids' futures. We looked, of course, we also spoke to the president of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. He came and talked to us for a sec. He was a really nice guy. I forget his name, cousin something something. Deb, am I right with that? Okay, thank you. And we looked a lot at really what the recommendations are, because our teachers really hadn't done this part of their practice and their consistent professional development. This whole thought of creating an equitable structure in mathematics was a very new concept. Even mathematical thinking versus computational thinking was kind of a different concept. And of course, mathematical instruction as well, in an equitable way. It's just a different mindset, and it's a different way of thinking about something that's been very concrete for a very long time. So we worked with Deborah, where are you? There you are. I see your tile. Deborah Atwell with LACO. This was prior to Jessica's allyship with the district. We examined the framework. We looked at the data. And we actually started researching math pathways from many, many different districts. We had tons of paper all over the desks in this committee, kind of just looking at, it was as if we were opening up catalogs for high schools in a way that we had not examined before. Our high school is fairly traditional in both its pathways and its instruction. And I think that it was an eye opener to see what high schools with a similar demographic were still somehow able to offer their students. We met with Christopher Coulter, the Executive Director of Secondary Education in Glendale Unified, because he was, Glendale is one of the districts that is leading the way with data science. We became very interested in data science, and along those lines ended up meeting with UCLA Center X, Suyin Machado, who is the director of the Introduction to Data Science project at Center X and the co-author of the IDS curriculum. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Okay, so these were our pathways initially, and you can see very standard. We've got math 6, 7, 8. We've got an accelerated option that goes into algebra 1. We did also, I believe, this year might be our last year for geometry in 8th grade. There might be just a couple kids still in there, but we're really not looking to create that offer at this time. And you can see kind of the pathways here that really led to a very traditional path of algebra 2, calculus, and/or AP statistics, and there you go. So the big problem here, and this is the problem that our data showed, was this 9th grade algebra readiness class. And what our data found was this, that kiddos that were getting a C or below in algebra 1 were routed to this algebra readiness class. And it came from a beautiful place. They wanted to provide support for these kiddos. But guess what? Almost 90% of them were Hispanic students. And so it wasn't just about, are we servicing our students in Algebra 1 in some kind of tiered sort of way? It became outsourcing tiered instruction to this other class that wasn't an A through G class. So as early as 9th grade, we realized that a large percentage of our population was disallowed access to higher education 4 years later because we weren't providing the supports in the Algebra 1 class as a part of the universal instruction. So I'm going to pause for a second. That's a lot to digest. You want me to admit this person? I'm assuming he's good. Okay. So, sorry. Awesome. So what I want to stress here is that we use the data to help drive the case that we needed to push our instruction to be more tiered as a universal way of reaching all students. Even though this came from a beautiful intention, which is to support kids, the class's data was proving that our intentions were not being reflected in this data. I'm going to pause for questions for just a second because I feel like that's a lot to ingest. Anything you want to question, push back on?
Did you actually have data from those students who took the algebra readiness? Did they get to Algebra 2?
Oh, I see your question. My understanding is that many of these kids did not. Algebra 2 is our biggest pain point in the high school, in the math pathway anyway. Algebra 1 was the next one. So many of them ended up taking like another year of Algebra 1. Like they would end up not doing well in Algebra 1. You know, we weren't changing our instruction to help them. We were just putting them into a lower level class. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
Yes,
saying
Deborah. Oh, sorry.
they were still in Algebra 1 as 11th graders in many cases.
That's my understanding. I can get back to you with more concrete data about that, but my understanding was that even if they did get to Algebra 2, they hadn't done 4 years of high school math,
right?
Because algebra readiness wasn't A through G.
I just wanted to be able to quote you if you actually had data on
You
the
know
fact
what?
that they didn't
You know
make
what?
it to Algebra 2.
Wendy, reach out to me again. And just remind me you've got that question, and I'll make note of
Okay.
it too. And I think I could probably get something for you.
Thank you.
Yes, Deborah.
I just wanted to add, since I got to go on this journey in the beginning with your team, that I thought what was really interesting was the examination of that algebra readiness, because I think most of the teachers at the high school were convinced that it was necessary and important. And so it was really, important to look at the data and what it was telling us, because that pushed the teachers who were involved to think differently. Because we, like you said, they're very well intentioned and they want good outcomes for their students. And so we really needed to have the conversation of why algebra readiness is not, should we keep pursuing this course, right? Should this still be part of the plan? So I just wanted to say that learning component around the framework and the data, I think really changed a lot of minds and opened them up to examine.
I think so. And taking that net away for us as teachers, I think proved very important. Oh, sorry. Yes. Lena.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
In regards to data, what kinds of data did you look at, and did any of it include student voice?
Great question. We are driven by student voice in this district, and we are on a journey to do so in a much deeper way. I want to say there, if I remember correctly, I want to say there was a student survey of some kind, but I'm not positive. But in this case, it had less to do with student input as it did. We really needed the concrete data to speak for the narrative here. That being the case, we do have students, just as an aside, we do have students on our interview panels. We do have students in our governing board who don't vote, but they vote. We do have students on our educational advisory committee, budget committee. You know what I mean? That we do get input a lot. I don't remember the case for this particular piece. I don't know why this keeps advancing, but it does. So I'm going to advance one more time. We were guided by two questions as we began to develop the beginnings of a more 21st century pathway. What pathway will best support our struggling students? And what pathway is most future-minded and reflects our goals for all students to achieve the portrait of a graduate and college and career readiness? This is our portrait of a graduate. I'm sure your district or organization has some version of it. And the goal being that we aren't a part of the barrier that gets in the way for the kids. We want to be a part of who's taking down the barriers for our students, right? So what we did was we also did some research in what our special education considerations were as we moved forward to kind of develop that next layer or next iteration of our pathway. And here it is. Okay, so this is kind of what it became. Nope. I feel like it's on a timer of some kind. Don't know why. Okay, so this is kind of what it became. And again, MTSS and tiered interventions is a bit of a beast for secondary. So this is kind of this first phase for us as we move forward. You can see wherever it says we're looking at push-in intervention support. So we've got an interventionist now in the middle school doing push-in support for math. And I believe he has 1 or 2 sections of his own class. And then there's that geometry final year. And then we ended up hiring an interventionist to push in to, I believe, 2 or 3 sections of Algebra 1 to be that added support, while the teacher, the general ed teacher, really focuses intensively on what small group instruction looks like in the high school schedule, in the high school classroom. Normally you think about small group instruction as an elementary strategy, but our Algebra 1 teacher, who's the same Algebra 1 teacher we had before, really a great guy, with the help of this interventionist, is a little more freed up to think through these other strategies that could be used to help support the learners in his Algebra 1 classroom to succeed. I'll tell you right now, we don't have tons of data about things, but the fact that we don't have algebra readiness, the fact that we do have only kids enter into Algebra 1 or that geometry piece, we've at least set them up for the opportunity of college and career readiness. Now, I am going to take a slight detour and talk intro to data science for a second. We got very excited about intro to data science. We were a full-in intro to data science district. We really saw it as a solution for an option for Algebra 2. If you are not a mathematician and you don't plan to be a mathematician, what are you going to go into that's relevant to you and your possible future? The answer is data science, because it's everywhere. It's also a part of the framework. It also is a precursor to statistics. So to us, it made sense. And indeed, for this year, it is counting as a math, and for next year. Is that right, Deb and Jessica? So we've got 2 more years where data science actually does count as a math class in lieu of Algebra 2. And we are like waiting with crossed fingers to see if it'll count beyond that for other classes, because we did find popularity and excitement, not only from the students, but from the teachers that decided to pilot the class. So it is in a little bit of flux right now. For in a year, 2 years, it'll be an elective right now. We don't know why. I don't know. my feeling is, and Deb and Jessica, you can push back. I feel like it's bound to become a math class eventually. I think we're in this weird transition with higher education going like, oh, it's not algebra 2. What are we going to do? But the ripple effect, if data science is not a math class, it just feels detrimental to me. So I'm just saying, right now we got intro to data science. It is proving amazingly successful as a mathematical thinking class for our kids who have no relationship with algebra 2. And that's what we want. We want mathematical thinking to happen, and we want this to be relevant. Anyway, I'm going to pause here for a moment and see if you have any questions. And this is where we're in this photo right now. We're living it.
Right. Can you explain the difference between a regular statistics class and an intro to data science? Because I see that they can go from intro to data science into statistics or AP statistics. So what would be the difference between the two?
I'm going to try and explain this to you. I am not necessarily I'm not the coordinator of math per se, right? I kind of oversee K-12 curriculum and instruction. What I can say, because I was really excited and able to go on visitations to Glendale to see Intro to Data Science in action. Intro to Data Science allows students to use the program R, which is the industry standard in data analysis, to, in a sense, use project-based learning to devise a problem and do the research and the data to try to pitch solutions for that problem, and looking at data over time. So it's very relevant to it's very inquiry based. It's very meaningful for the kids. And again, they are using, it's a very almost like a work-based learning tie-in, because it's got this real industry standard platform that they're using. So the teacher gets trained in using R. The curricula comes from UCLA Center X, and it's a really it's very structured, which is very interesting because it's so student-centered and inquiry-based. How it leads into statistics and AP statistics, I'm not sure I know the concrete answer to that, other than they are both based in statistics in the frameworks, which is why it's a confusing thing to see one in the math pathways and one the debate is it's being teased out. I don't see how you can tease them both apart. I'm sorry, I know that probably didn't answer your question totally.
Oh, thank you. That's fine.
I can also add, Heather, for the intro to data science, the class is created around stat standards long. So all of the standards that are in that class are statistics standards. And for me, I look at it as like an application of statistics because of the whole, what Heather was sharing about them using the coding, the R software. But there is no specific prereq where, oh, in order for me to take intro to data science, I have to have stats, you know, or in order for me to take statistics, I have to have intro to, like, there's no specific prereq, if that makes sense.
What is your experience, Heather, with students who take intro to data science? Are they primarily taking it right after geometry? Are they primarily taking it after algebra 2?
A lot of the kids that are taking it in lieu of algebra 2, because algebra 2 is what is disinteresting to them. You know what I mean? They're not connecting with it somehow, and so this becomes an option. I will say that after this year, we'll have a much greater sense of passing rates and things like that. We'll know a lot more come summer.
Was this your first year offering it?
This is the first year. You can see that this literally started in the
Right.
23-24 year.
Do you happen to know, based on pre-registering for next year, are those students going on to AP Stats, for example?
My understanding is a number of them are. Our right now, the big debate going on is, do they pitch it as a math class for next year, or do they pitch it as an electives class? And, womp womp. That's the concern I have. I would love for us to give it its next year. But I think, I think that's going to be a site decision. There is no doubt, according to the principal, that there's enthusiasm. There's no doubt, according to the counselors, that the kids have enjoyed it, and that we've got kids that are seeing more success in that class than have seen success in Algebra 2. The question is now whether we really will get kids signing up for it if it isn't a part of the math pathway. And that's a debate that the UCs have to resolve. Yeah.
I have a question.
Of course.
Going back just to get a little bit more clarification.
Mhm.
So your Algebra 1 with intervention push-in, you were talking about you had hired someone for push-in support.
Mhm.
Is that person is the interventionist in that particular classroom every day, or is it a couple of days a week, or how does that
Nope, every
work?
day.
Every day.
Every
Okay,
day. We have one math interventionist in the high school, and that they are currently in that 9th grade Algebra 1 class. Now, here's the other part of this that has to happen. And I will say, in all vulnerability, it has been very slow to happen. And we've had a lot of pushback. If we're taking algebra readiness out of the 9th grade year, that means algebra readiness has to go down to middle school, which is really where it's supposed to be. We need our middle school team to start thinking of themselves as prepping them for Algebra 1 in a much more intentional way. And so I think we're going to be looking at, and I know that you typically hear 3 to 5 years, that I think we're looking at 3 years before we really see the benefit of some kind of a change happening at the middle school level, to see that Algebra 1 need for intervention to decrease. Right now, those numbers are really high. They are not. Now, one of the things we did this year, I mean, this is like MTSS net, weaving all together, right? You have to create that that comprehensive assessment program in order to really see what's going on. We just adopted STAR for our secondary math screener, which is recommended by the National Intervention Council. Okay, so I can send you the link. I don't remember the actual name, but it's one of the only things for secondary that's actually recommended by this organization, and was actually shared with me by Audra Mesa at the OCDE. And STAR will give us algebra readiness scores as a domain starting in the 6th grade tests. So we'll be able to identify kiddos that are struggling in those strands earlier and in a more intentional way than we were targeting before. So that should help us, but we're not going to see that for a couple more years.
Right. Okay.
And so we're going to definitely need that interventionist at that 9th grade level for a while. We are also offering a bridging class between 8th and 9th in algebra preparedness that counts. I want to say they might count it. I don't know if it's even for any kind of credit or unit because they're not high schoolers yet, right? But it's certainly offered. You're invited to it if you're 2 years or below. And then I know that there's talk of possibly hiring another interventionist to help with geometry. So just, and again, I think some of this might end up being temporary for the next few years. But, we're all shoring up some gaps now that we're data oriented. Did I hear a question?
Yes, I have another question. Can you explain the exact schedule of the interventionist then? Is he spending 5 periods a day, 6 periods a day, pushing into just Algebra 1 classes? What exact, is there a a prep period does he have, or what exactly
Oh
is?
yeah, for sure. And I think she corresponds with the Algebra 1 teacher so that they can be working together very closely. So I think they have an intentional schedule. So yes, she has a prep. Yes, she has a lunch. I don't know the order of the Algebra 1 classes, but it is very intentional, Algebra 1. I don't know if she has her own intervention class. She may have a single period, or the other thing that is possible, and I can send Deb and Jessica this information as well. We have this embedded time piece twice a week, and she might run a group during that embedded time that need tier 2, tier 3 support. The middle school math interventionist, he is split between push in and pull out. And so the model we want to go towards is all push it. But until we've got some things worked out, especially at the secondary level, pull out's a much easier thing to schedule with the beast that is, scheduling.
So is there an interventionist in every Algebra 1 class period, or
No.
just selected one?
No, thank you for asking. No, there are some Algebra 1 classes that do not have the interventionist. But that being said, we do have some Algebra 1 classes that are co-taught, is my understanding. We do have some interventionists, or we do have an EL TOSA that I think goes into one of those classes. So we have different ways of kind of providing that extra support for all of the students that we have.
So students aren't scheduled into particular class sections.
I would say that if I can't say they aren't, I'll be honest with you, because I think that if a student is showing 2 years and below, they might be, they would be scheduled in to that Algebra 1 with the interventionist. That's the purpose of that position right now, to help shore that up and set them up for success. And you're like, that sounds like tracking. I mean, we're trying to find different supports and, different, it's, with MTS, it's kind of all hands on deck. And so everyone's kind of pushing in to help support those kids. And there's a lot of kids to support right now. Yeah. All right. So anyway, this is kind of our next steps, right? We continue to analyze and evaluate policies that might lead to tracking and some other inequitable practices. We have found some beats. Again, they came from great intentions, but if they lead to inequitable practices, we got to figure out how to get them off our schedule. We want to provide every student access to intellectually challenging curriculum, as well as the supports they need. We are working on ongoing professional development and support. We are about to conduct a walkthrough through the Algebra 1 classes, because they are excited to show us small group instruction in action, which is exciting. And we're working to provide them more time, in particular for 6th through 12th grade math teachers to collaborate, which wasn't something that was happening too often in our culture here in San Gabriel. So let's see if there's anything else you need to know. That's it for me. I was longer than 15. Sorry, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Heather. I love all the questions. It was great to hear all the collaboration and discussion. So no worries at all.
Oh, wonderful.
Did we have any other questions before we continue our presentation? All right. Well,
I have one quick one.
Okay, go for it.
Heather, would it be possible to schedule a time to possibly do like a walkthrough visit to see how your small groups are running at the high school level?
I tell you what, I'm putting in my email address right there. You reach out to me and I will share anything I can. We're about to do our first walkthrough. So if it's something to go Yahoo about, I am sure they would love to show it off. If it's something that's like, wow, that's a great first step, then I'll let you know, and maybe we'll see you next year. Because we'll keep working on it. We just want to make sure that we're the best model we can be. but we're a little district, but we are enthusiastic to change and help our students. And that's really what's driving us right now.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You are so welcome. It's a pleasure. So much fun.
All right.
Good luck, everybody. Wendy, I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that was awesome to hear. When I first started at LACO, I heard, I was lucky to hear her presentation, and I was like, we need to share this with everyone. Everyone needs to hear this. But all right, well, I'd like to share these goals for equitable pathways. So our CISC subcommittee is actually working on a webpage, but we want to ground our work here with these goals. So as educators, we aim to open up access and provide opportunities for all of our students, regardless of their race or their economic status, to achieve in mathematics. And the framework really advocates for a shared 9th and 10th grade mathematical experience. That then we have the creation of fostering community and identity and agency in students via those 2 9th and 10th grade years. So today, we're going to actually look into 3rd and 4th year options. And the framework also really advocates for this to be dependent upon students' futures and interests and endeavors. So I'd like to share with you all, and this just restates what I just shared, right? We have our 9th and 10th grade 2-year experience, either with your traditional pathway or with your integrated pathway. But here is an image from the framework. I'm sure you all have seen this, but just take a moment to look again. And in the chat, go ahead or unmute what's something that looks familiar or what's something that looks different. What do you see here? Or so what's something that you're wondering about, maybe? So how are you all? Are you all familiar with this image? All right. So I did want to give us some time to talk a little bit about data science. I know Heather already shared a little bit about it, but I wanted to share with you all these 2 reports, the February minutes and the phase 1 report, just so that we can familiarize ourselves if we haven't looked at it, or just kind of review what is being, what is being or determined, or the decisions that were being made, without consultation of other educators. But just go ahead and take 5 minutes to review the documents. And I believe Christina will drop those, or she has dropped those in the chat. Thank you, Christina. And then we'll go ahead and come back in 5 minutes, and then we're going to do a quick discussion on what are some key takeaways from our reports or our documents, and then what questions do we still have. And so I'll go ahead and put the timer. And
Did you want us to go to the breakout rooms now?
So I was going to do a breakout room. Christina, did you open the breakout room?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, let's do that. How many did we end up having?
We have 2.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Christina. So you can go ahead and go to the breakout rooms, take 5 minutes to read and then discuss, and then we'll come back. I'm going to close the breakout rooms, Christina. All right, welcome back. I'm curious to see what were some takeaways or some questions you still had around that data science. I know Heather talked a little bit about it, but I just want to make sure I provide that space for us.
Honestly, Jessica, the idea of trying to add that as an option for IM3 with the current documents we read, that's a scary process or a scary thought. I mean, like, we're not offering it. We're doing the integrated pathway and then a couple of options beyond that. But the idea of pulling in some of these other classes when there's a possibility that these students may not get proper credit at the university level is kind of scary.
Yeah, I totally understand. And that's why I'm still hopeful. We're still hopeful. You know, we have different discussions going on right now, but we are very hopeful that because what Heather shared about it becoming an elective, that is also very scary. And so we're hopeful that in the phase 2 discussions that they're going to be having around what the 4th year math course, what the definition of what that looks like, the advanced mathematics 4th year math course. We're hopeful that it'll live in that space, because we do know that it's not validating algebra 2, right? And so unfortunately, like what Heather was sharing, a lot of their students were taking the IDS as instead of the algebra 2. That's not gonna be something that will be happening after fall 2025, right? So this takes effect on fall 2025, but we are hopeful that it lives in that 4th year math course. But we still don't know because they're still having these discussions, and we still need to hear. And I believe they shared that we are going to have, we hope to have more in May, by May. Mm-hmm.
One thing that really stood out to me was the mention of 33% of students with the validation for IM3, and that many of those students actually were taking, probably took AP statistics. Do you know, are there any numbers anywhere to determine like what happened to those students once they did reach the university and were taking classes? Because I'm just seeing 33% of students use this, something other than algebra 2 or IM3 to validate, and yet that's all that's mentioned. So I'm just curious, is there anywhere else we can find more information? Or is this just because assumptions are being made? And they talked about like counseling as an issue with students too. So I'm just wondering if there's any more data available.
Yeah, I'm not sure about any more data that is available. What I shared with you all is what we have.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see what would have happened, or how did the students do at the university level, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it's almost like there's a conflation of two different issues, and it's just, it would be interesting to see further data from the university. So maybe they'll publish it.
Definitely.
I'm also wondering, I can't remember all the letters and numbers attached to it, but for the community colleges, the changes for students doing STEM majors in the community colleges, that takes effect this fall as well, I believe. Do you know much about that? I don't know much about it.
No, I do not, Wendy. I did not know. But thank you for sharing. What is the changes? What are those changes?
Well, I don't even want to say anything because I was hoping somebody had some expertise around this, but it's got, how all these bills have letters. My understanding is that for students at the community colleges doing, and I can send you a PowerPoint I saw. I can send it to you because I am speaking from almost complete ignorance here. I was hoping somebody in this group knew more than I did. But the way I understand it is students who want to be in STEM fields at the community colleges now, the first credit course is calculus. So pre-calculus is going to be required for community college students in STEM majors. And if they don't have that, they're going to have to take additional courses. They're
Oh,
recommending statistics for non-STEM majors in high school and pre-calculus for STEM majors.
oh, I haven't heard about that. That's interesting.
And it's part of a bill, like I said, I forget the letters. It's part of something I was well aware of, and I didn't know about that piece of it, which takes effect this year, I believe, or maybe next year. It's like the last phase of something. And it's part of that, you know, when I first heard about it, I thought I had never heard about it. And then I heard some of it and it's like, oh yeah, that's in the back of my mind. So let me see if I can quickly get it. Has anybody else heard about this with the community colleges?
Mm-mm.
No, and that's interesting because what is it? Intermediate algebra is still a course that's basically offered. That would be kind of like an algebra 2 or IM3. And I think that's what's needed for an AA or some of the AA degrees.
Well,
I don't know if that's changed
totally-
over the years because I know that
Somebody
was
sent me a
required.
PowerPoint. And I'm trying to find it, but of course I can't find it. I'll send it to you. And it could be I'm totally misunderstanding.
Yeah,
So,
I can definitely look into it and then see.
but I'll send you the name of what it is. I just can't find what they sent me now.
Thank you for
Oh, found
sharing
it.
that, Wendy.
I did find it. I'll give you the.
All right. So
on.
any
Go ahead.
other questions or wonderings around data science before we move on?
Long said, is it AB 1705?
I think that's what it is. I'm trying to find the number. Yeah, it's 1705. Do you know more about that?
I was at a meeting with Mount SAC. I'm just trying to remember all the things that were said. It's just information overload. But I did just find the slides just now, so I can send it to everyone if maybe that would be interesting to know. But that's how I found the bill. I was looking through the slides.
Thank you, Long.
Yeah. I finally found the slide somebody sent me as well. But I'm wondering if this will have an impact on us as well in what we want to be advising students.
Definitely. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just move us along. So I have the UC guidance on Area C here just for our own update, right? I want to make sure I share that information. So the requirement has not changed. So they're still requiring the 3 years of the math for recommended. And the 3 years of the math, they strongly recommend the courses of the sequence of the Algebra 1 geometry and Algebra 2, or the integrated 1, 2, and 3. And they are working on redefining the 2 types of higher math courses, right? One, and this just happened with the data science, one category validating the lower level coursework, the Algebra 1 or the IM1 or the IM2 or the Algebra 2 or IM3, because they have the prereqs. So for example, pre-calc would validate the Algebra 2 or the IM3, right? And that's what you were sharing, Wendy, at the beginning about what we talked about in the first day. And then the category 2, which is those that do not validate the lower level coursework because they do not have the content, which is what I'm hoping that data science might fall into, if that makes sense, similar to AP statistics. Yeah, and the recommended fourth year math course will advance student learning. And they, in this letter, and I think Christina, thank you for dropping it in the chat. They also share that they do recognize data science. There's a little bit about that information there, but I'll let you all read that on your own time. So I just want to make sure I share this because this is the latest information that we have around UC Area C guidance. And I also want to make sure that I share this because this is a wonderful opportunity that I just learned about myself. So the CSU also has some Area C guidance around the bridge courses. I don't know if you are all familiar with the bridge courses, but they have created a few math courses, fourth year math courses that meet the Area C requirement. And they're actually having a math summit for these bridge courses on April 30th here at Cal State Long Beach. It's really close to all of us. And there's different dates there. I think there's one on April 15th, one on April 16th, but the closest is here in Long Beach. And Christina has dropped the link to register for that summit in the chat. So if you are interested in learning about more about these different fourth year courses, that is a learning opportunity for us there. Yeah. Any questions around the UC guidance or the CSU Area C guidance?
The two categories you mentioned for the fourth year advanced math classes, those who validate and those who don't, do they currently have those two categories?
Yes, those are the two categories that they share in the document that Christina dropped in the chat in their I guess guidance after their discussion around the data science. From what I understand, they're still working on what they look like or what courses might fall into these categories.
But currently, does AP Stats validate IM3 or Algebra 2?
No.
So when they said that 1/3 of students are validating with AP Stats in the reading, what did that mean?
I would have to look at specifically what it to see if I understand. Lena, I see your face. Did you want to share a little? What was that? Is that the?
Yeah, that, and I think that's why I'm like, I'm right there with kind of with Wendy. And then also that's part of the reason why I had the question about, well, what other data is there in terms of what happens with these students? And the point was made to mention the 33%, but it's like, what's the purpose? Because 33% is a good chunk of students.
So like, I know, because I work with that and all the time, that higher level math courses do not validate geometry, but depending on which system, they can validate, you have to have taken geometry, but a higher level math course will validate a D in geometry, but it'll validate not even taking algebra 3 and algebra 2 and algebra 1. So I'm wondering, does AP Stats, is it one of those where it validates the grade, but not missing the course? So a student who got a D in algebra 2 would have the grade validated because there's two kinds of validation?
No,
I don't know.
it would validate that
The grade, but not
validates the
course.
course, but it doesn't change the grade.
Oops, sorry.
AP Stats.
Yeah, because I remember that question coming up in my district. All it does is validate, but if the course, but that it doesn't change the fact that the kid got a D.
No,
Right.
but it meets the requirement. I know
It just says they can check the box that it validates.
right.
However, the D is computed in their GPA.
Thank you. All right. And I also want to share the framework recommendation on essential topics for quantitative fields. And so with that, I'd like to move us into a more of a reflection, because I think we're running a little bit short on time, but I wanted to give you all some opportunity to really reflect on your own pathways, right? And so just I'm gonna have you all just take a little bit of time to independently think about the possible options for the high school mathematics pathways that you currently have. And then if you can just make some notes on the Canva page that Christina shared in the chat. You can open up that page and or that Canva web page, and then there's different pages there. So you can choose one, whichever one you'd like. And then just think about what are possible opportunities that your district might leverage, or how might we better support our freshmen coming in with their engagement in mathematics. And I know that a lot of this work has to do with our counselors. So maybe who might we need to involve or implicate in this process, right? Yeah, so if we can open up, well, actually, let's do 5 minutes, and then we'll open up some break rooms so that you all can share your specific, what that might look like in your specific school sites. Is everybody able to access the canvas? All right. So it should look like this. If you click on the little icon at the bottom, it has the different pages, and you can choose whichever one you like. It's the first year that I've been able to look at Canva and actually, play with it. So I love it. It's like awesome. All right. So I'll put 5.
Do you want us to say what we currently do or be imaginative?
Well, you can reflect on what you currently do and then maybe be imaginative as well. With a show of minutes, how much more time do you need with the show of fingers, if you can? 2 more minutes. All right, Long. All right, so that was about 2 minutes. Now I'm going to ask you all, because I know this is a smaller group because we lost a few people already. I think Margie had to step out. It took. Did you want to go into breakout rooms and talk about him amongst you three, or do you want to just share out here?
Share out here, I would say.
All
There's
right.
only three of us.
Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and just bring it up. And I'm going to share this one. I believe this is the one. Yes. All right. Who is this long?
This one is me. And I had a hard time trying to fill things in and move things around. So I'll just give the general idea.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're looking to redo our pathways. We've actually started in on that work. And so the proposed idea moving forward, it'll have to go to another committee next year to get more input and make any changes, is grade 7. We don't start middle school at grade 6. We start at grade 7. So grade 7, everybody would take math 7, and then we'd have like a special data science project added on for honors. So some big project where we would have like a symposium at the end and so forth for the kids that need extra things. Then we would have an 8th grade math 8 or the accelerated course. So this would be the first point where students would accelerate. Then we felt that this would be more equitable based on how students are typically placed and data. And then accelerated math class would be math 8 and math 1, where either overlap or things progress naturally. Essentially, we would finish up linear, looking at linear functions basically and everything that goes with that. And then that course could then go into an accelerated math 1, finishing up math 1 and then math 2, doing all of math 2. And then the following year, they would go into like a math 3 pre-calc specialized course where we looked already at standards and what overlaps and what would be more natural. And then to continue on, they would go into like a math analysis calc A and then BC course their senior year. But if I'm a student that still hasn't accelerated in 8th grade, but wants to accelerate in 9th, we would offer a bridge class so that they catch up on that math 1 piece that they missed. And then later in high school, let's say I still haven't accelerated, but I have an IM1, I take IM2, and then I could accelerate into the IM3 pre-calc and then continue on to a calculus course. However, we would still be offering things like intro to stats reasoning as possible 4th year courses, or even for kids that are not CSU UC bound. We're looking to, we wanted to add a data science course, but that's been put on hold. And right now I'm getting some other questions about, well, what other math courses could we add? So things coming up like financial algebra. We have tried an MRWC in the past. So that way kids start to have more choices. So
how was the MRWC, Lena?
We had one school try it out. Unfortunately, that the teacher who was teaching it retired.
Oh, okay.
And the teacher really liked the course. She said the one big thing though is attendance is important. Is the way it's structured, which is not a bad thing, but she said it really is a collaboration course. So it's not like traditional pre-calculus.
Yeah.
At least at their site, where she goes, somebody could be absent for 1,000,000 days and just do the work independently, but that is not the case with MRWC. And that was one of the just because of the training and the way it's set up was actually it's actually a benefit for students. She said she had like 1 or 2 chronic absent students and they were just dying. They had to transfer into another course.
Gotcha. And did your teacher get training from the CSU?
Oh, yeah, the CSU. What was it, Cal Poly?
Yeah. Yeah, because Gracie was sharing that course with me during our meeting last week.
Yeah, and I went through the training too.
Okay, awesome.
As the district coach, because I would be supporting. And so, yeah, it's a really good. Actually, I would like all our math teachers at some point trained in that course because I think it's a good way to bridge. It actually helps, just kind of the way it's set up. I think it would have helped our teachers start shifting their practices with content that was more in a more familiar format for them.
Gotcha.
So for collaboration structures and ideas and things like that.
I'm very interested. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Lena. Do we have any questions for Lena before we look at the others?
Do you currently do this, or that was your kind of vision?
This is the vision, not just my vision right now. We've had a data science committee that had looked into what were we going to do with data science? Are we going to embed? Are we going to offer a course? We're waiting for boards. So this is essentially what that particular committee has put together. It will next go to our math equity and then our leadership teams and other parent committees. Because right now we have 7th grade is the first acceleration point. And what we have found out is that even our middle school's teachers, department chairs have no idea how kids are placed in these classes. So if a parent is in the know, in some campuses, the kids get placed, whether it's an appropriate placement or not at that time. So in my district, it's going to be a very hard sell to not accelerate in 7th grade, but we're hoping to say, hey, you can do other honors designations. There's extra things that kids can develop in mathematics, just to make sure there's more people, we see more equity if kids want to accelerate and not just, oh, now I have to fill up a class. So if I have, let's say, 10 kids who could go into an accelerated class, well, now I'm going to throw in an extra 20 kids just because I need to fill a class. And then those kids are, suffering and would have benefited from take Math 7 and then take a bridge during the summer to go in accelerated Math 8. So we do have multiple acceleration points right now. It's just that over the last several years, our high schools have been allowed to do pretty much whatever they please. So now we're back into what I would say is really bad tracking. So we need to change again. Like we need to change and give something to the high schools that is feasible. And we're trying to, do stuff with middle school math coaches where they're pushing in classrooms. So we're hoping to reset. And I'm actually really interested in talking to, I think her name was Heather.
Heather, yeah.
Yes, a little bit more about the intervention piece.
Thank you so much, Lena. Let's look at this next one. I'm not sure whose this one is.
It's not me.
Yeah, this one's mine.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again, Lena.
So for this one, the first 2 pathways are what we currently have at our school for accelerated options. I know last week we were presented with an accelerated option for 8th grade, but I guess we won't really move forward with that until we see a little bit more data or see a little bit more of the justification. Because I noticed I forgot to ask this one question of Heather, but in San Gabriel, they're still doing 7th grade accelerated. They're not doing the Math 8 Integrated 1 accelerated option. So I'm kind of curious why they decided to stick with 7th grade accelerated as opposed to the Math 8 accelerated. But that's the current pathway that we have. One pathway that we hoping to offer next year is an integrated 3 years compacted into 2 course. So that's the yellow pathway. The second pathway there, starting at freshman year, the students can take 3 semesters worth of math, and then in 2 years' time, they'll have credit for integrated 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, they have many options. We have a pre-calculus honors that allows them to go to calculus BC right away instead of calculus AB. We also have a dual enrollment pre-calculus that gives them credit for Mount SAC. Or even just a regular pre-calc class as well. So we have a lot of options there. And we also have MRWC as well. I forgot to add that in. So that's something that we hopefully are hoping to try out next year, get more kids into an accelerated pathway. And then the rest of it are just random ideas that I've heard. I just wanted to pick everyone's minds about it. For intervention, this green pathway was an option that a teacher presented. I don't know how I feel about it, but it might be worth trying out. I don't know. But what if a student takes integrated one over the course of 2 years? Would that way they're still getting credit? It's not algebra readiness, but at the same time, it's so I don't really know. So I know the algebra readiness discussion. This might not be a good pathway, but I just wanted to pick everybody's mind. How do they feel about that? And this blue pathway, I wanted to see how everyone feels about that one too. If a student takes probability stats after integrated two, what can they take after that? So I guess we need to create more course pathways to fill those gaps. But we're kind of at a loss here as far as how to proceed. And that last one is kind of my dream sequence. We've lost AP stats a few years back, but I think we would very much like to bring it back. But that's wishful thinking, I guess.
Your curiosity about the 1A and 1B, in my district, we've tried different iterations of this in the past, and our last school that has held on, the last school that held on to a model similar to this was IM1, not over 2 years, but a year and a half. They found the pass rate success later was not good. Other schools in my district that had something similar to this in the past, they abandoned this pathway. But to be honest, I don't know what type of supports were embedded in those courses. So that's something to think about. And if these courses were really taught differently. But it was not successful in my district. It doesn't mean it can't be successful elsewhere, but in mine, it wasn't.
Thank you for that.
I have no firsthand experience, but 2 years ago, I reached out to districts that were doing that because a lot of our teachers thought it would be a good idea. And all the districts I reached out to, I think West Covina was one of them, a few others, I
Yes.
can't remember. And they said it was not successful.
Interesting.
So
Yeah. You're talking about the green pathway, right?
Yes.
Yeah, my only hesitation with that would be first, they're not gonna get the 4th year of the math, right? So I think students need to be aware that the UC situation, it might not be, it might look it might not look good on a transcript. And then coming from an administrative perspective, because I was an administrator, I think it leaves like little room for, like, let's say students don't pass a class, then when would they recover the credit? Like, I guess during summer. So those are things that for me, that are standing out from that green one.
Jess, can I add on to that comment?
Yeah.
I don't know specifically what your demographics are, but if students are applying to HBCUs, they require a 4th year math. So I had, some of my son's friends who didn't know that coming into, their senior year trying to apply to HBCUs, and they couldn't apply because they didn't have a 4th year.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christina.
The blue pathway, it looks like, actually, we've had some of our students in our district do that. These are typically students that are non-STEM majors though. And they've been very successful. For probability stats, ours is Introduction to Stats Reasoning. And then oftentimes they take an AP statistics course and they've gotten into very prestigious programs at UCs and privates. So,
I
of
guess
course
it
now
goes
with,
back into the, does it count for the 4 years math thing if they take stats and then AP stats? Is that what the
yeah,
question was
they've
about? Okay.
actually, yeah. And like I said, they've gotten into some very competitive, prestigious programs. So I know UCs and privates. However, again, non-STEM majors.
But it looks like you don't have integrated 3 on that pathway.
Exactly, because right
So-
now, the stats or AP stats, actually both classes will validate IM3 right now and next year.
Right, but
I still need
probably
clarity
not
for
long-term.
25, 26.
Yeah, like
Are
data
those kids
science.
grandfathered in if they took it before then?
I'm working on drafting that email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. And I really love that purple pathway along for the, it's I think that it's it's important to have AP stats or, stats
How
in
can we build the capacity in our math teachers so that they
I
feel confident to offer this course though?
yes, I had a lot of conversations with my teacher, my high school teacher. We only offered regular stats, and I would always have like drop a little, oh, so what about AP stats?
Right.
But you want to make sure your teacher feels confident in the course, right? To teach it and building the capacity. That's what it is. How do we do that? I mean, I would offer, and that's if they're open summer training. That's how I got my foot in the door when I first started teaching calc. I would to I think UC, I forget, in San Diego, they have a summer institute for AP. Maybe offer them the opportunity to go without committing to teaching the class. That could maybe be an incentive or incentivize teachers, something. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Lena and Wendy?
I
So
love that.
I
purple
would
pathway.
say if you can even reach out to other districts, maybe they have some teachers that are very familiar with teaching the course. My understanding is a lot of the times the teachers who teach this the first time, they're only a couple of days ahead of the kids, so it's normal. But I could see maybe reaching out to other districts and seeing if perhaps, there could be a lifeline there for the teacher.
I like that.
So
I like that a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh my God. And we're at 4:30, but I want to give Wendy a chance to share hers. Wendy.
I didn't do a good job of entering it into what's on the screen, so ignore that. Our current practice right now is very far from where we want to be. So we've been focusing on changing our middle school pathways. We currently have no accelerated compacted courses. It's skipping courses and it starts in 6th grade. So we have 6th graders in Algebra 1 and they are still in elementary school. Our middle school starts in 7th grade, but we have 6th graders in Algebra 1, 7th graders in Algebra 1, 8th graders in Algebra 1 because they skipped entire courses. That is our current practice. So we are trying to change that, which I thought I could do in 1 year and couldn't happen in 1 year. The proposal is that old idea of the acceleration starting in 7th grade. And there's a whole, for a very long time, it's been like that. Parents start thinking about it when their kids are, I had a call from a 3rd grade parent. How can I make sure my child is in Algebra 1 by 6th grade? So that is our culture right now, that we are in the process of trying to change that super early acceleration. So that's a bit of context. But meanwhile, because of that, we offer, currently we have students who take Algebra 1 in 6th grade, and we actually have 7 years of math courses for them because we have the AP courses and IB courses. And we currently make AP courses the prereqs for IB. So the only way to take every course in our sequence is to start Algebra 1 in 6th grade. So we need to do some work in high school. That's the quick context. So what I was thinking was, ideally, we want to scale back. And Heather's district has somewhat of a similar history, and they've been spending years getting to where they are. So I've talked to her about this before. But the traditional pathway would be Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, because we're traditional. We do have many AP Stats courses. I didn't put it on the diagram there, but I would like that to be a very common fourth-year course for our students who have no acceleration. Currently, we make pre-calc a prereq for AP Stats, which is not allowing access. Many barriers there.
Yeah.
We were looking at data science, decided not to offer it because of the changes coming, and we don't want to disadvantage students by redirecting them to something that is maybe not going to get them on the path they want to be on. Geometry, one of our practices that's being developed is Geometry Summer School as an acceleration point, which I think makes a lot of sense, and we've had a lot of interest in that. So that'd be one acceleration point. We don't currently have an Algebra 2 that would incorporate pre-calc content, but I would like to include that as another option. And we are seriously wanting a financial algebra course. I don't know if either of your districts offer that, but I've been looking at those financial algebra courses, and I feel like it would be of high interest to a lot of our students, but I don't know if we should do that Algebra 1 financial algebra or the Algebra 2 financial algebra, because they are both such pain points for us. And I'm not sure which one would make more sense to put into the financial, but I know there are existing financial algebra courses for both. So that's, despite what it says up there, we currently have a very traditional path.
Why are we still here? I don't know. Oh shoot.
Sorry. Does anybody offer financial algebra in your districts?
We used to a long time ago, and now I'm getting questions about bringing it back. I'm going to be looking at UC Darways, because I know our continuation school is in some dire need of different course offerings.
I went through Doorways and listed all these districts that offer it.
Like, yeah, so I'm going to start looking into it. I know it went away because it became a dumping ground, basically, was my understanding. So
for Algebra 1 or Algebra 2, what are you looking at it for?
I am looking at it as a possible fourth-year course for some students, but it'll depend on how ramped up things, again, like what is all this criteria going to be for fourth-year courses? But even kids that are, that are going to go into careers, other different types of careers, like maybe cosmetology, other things like that, and they want to take another year of math, that's what I think it would be used for if we were to bring that in.
We want to invest, it as a third-year option.
I've also seen it, Wendy, as like an actual like pathway where it's financial algebra 1, geometry, and financial algebra 2.
I've seen that too.
I've seen it like that.
So, yeah, it's something we're going to be investigating. I'm the coordinator of instructional support. I'm not specifically math, but we have a secondary math program specialist, and she and I have been talking about next year being an exploratory year for us to look at what financial algebra is out there.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you for sharing, Wendy and Lena and Long. I know it's 4:36, and I know Long, you just got asked, what are you still doing here?
Yeah, I want my coworkers to leave. I don't know why they're still here, but
but I'm gonna go ahead and close us out. Just want to share what else is in the deck. There are some tools. There's a case study for you to have access to, and then there's this really cool tool on empathy interviews that I think it's really awesome if you're interested in conducting some or gathering some qualitative data with your teachers or your students. So that's there for you all. And then I listed a couple other tools here. I know that one of them that I want to highlight is the course taking audit, right? And Heather shared a little bit about how they were able to do that or get data to help support the changes that they've implemented. And then the framework does offer student scenarios. So these scenarios here, there's 3 of them, and it'll give you a scenario for a specific student and their specific goals. And then here's the recommendation from the framework based on the student's specific goals. And I'll let you all read through those because we ran out of time. But I love the discussions that we had. So yeah, I'm going to close us out with this beautiful quote. Giving students a choice of pathways through their last 2 years of high school can elevate a student's real-world application of mathematics and understanding and engagement with mathematics, right? Because I think a lot of it is students are disengaged. They're tired of taking Algebra 1. That was my experience when I first started teaching as a student teacher. I had 10th graders taking Algebra 1 and they hated it. And we want to get away from that, right? And I think that a lot of that happens when we accelerate without students being ready to actually be accelerated. So yeah, thank you all. And I'd love your feedback. If you can provide me the feedback, here's the QR code, and Christina dropped the link in the chat before she left. So thank you again. And I hope you have a great evening and reach out with any questions if you have them. And yeah, I hope you all have a great spring break as well.
Thank you, Jessica. You too.
Bye.
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 Thank you. This was really helpful today.